One parting word for people at home today, Trent, before we leave you to go tackle the rest of your day.
Well, I just think that earlier we touched on it. I started losing weight and I started getting in better physical shape in my 60s when I hired a coach. And my coach, Manny Ramos, I'm going to put a shout out to Manny's Fitness Boot Camp. He's a former Marine drill instructor. And he didn't start off being a fitness coach, but he knew he had an expertise. And people started asking Manny, will you coach me? Will you fit as my fitness coach? And over the last 6 years, it's just changed my life physically.
You're listening to LA 40 with Katerina Kozayas, only on LA Talk Radio.
I have a very special guest with me today. You're going to want to tune in for this show because we are going to dive deep into who the heck has stolen our American dream. My special guest this morning, Mr. Trent Benedetti. Trent, good morning.
Katerina, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Trent, I am excited that you're here because you are the founder of Benedetti Financial.
Yes.
And you have years of expertise in the space of not only financial advisory, but financial coaching, financial mentorship, and financial, financial coaching, financial mentorship, and also financial education.
Yes, what I found out after getting into my CPA practice and then getting my securities licenses that financial stress is just prevalent in society, prevalent among my clients. Surveys show it. And really, you come at it from two angles. Either you have too much month left at the end of the money, you just stressed about where your next dollar is going to come from, or you have money, you've accumulated it, and now you're concerned about what's going to happen at retirement. How am I going to actually survive and live when I don't have this job that I have right now, creating this income? And so coming from those two angles, I just launched my business on a journey to help people create that financial peace in their life and learn how to live a life without that stress just bearing on them. And it's just prevalent in our society, and it's just no need to be that way.
Well, and you touched on something that I want to repeat for people, because how many of you can feel the truth of this? There is just too much month at the end of the money, and people are living paycheck to paycheck. We say that the economy is in great shape. That's debatable. But I know that there are more people struggling to pay their bills than necessary. So in your opinion, well, what I'd like you to do is just share with the audience, first of all, you mentioned you were a CPA. You are a CPA.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what sparked you to want to move into a place where you're genuinely helping people overcome really what is a financial block. Because I guess if you're having issues with money, if you're having issues investing, there's probably an underlying money belief. Right.
Well, in my life, it was, I was one of the statistics in the survey. One of the biggest stressors in relationships and in my marriage, and this was, 13 years ago when my wife and I went to Financial Peace University, a program sponsored by the Dave Ramsey organization. And actually, it was a multimillionaire client of mine that told me that he was sponsoring it. He said, Trent, you've got to come to this. You and Barbara will get so much out of this. And after that, that was in 2010, I just decided that everybody's got to hear these simple concepts. We're not taught that in college. I have a degree in accounting and finance, and I was taught debt and leverage. And who teaches financial literacy anywhere? You don't get it in high school. You don't get it in college. And it's just, Dave Ramsey has a saying, I'm tired of getting advice from my broke college finance professor. So he went out and they interviewed over 10,000 millionaires, and they decided, actually it was a book written out by these professors from the University of Georgia back in the early 90s. And that's recently been updated by Chris Hogan, a colleague of Dave Ramsey. And the millionaires, there's certain principles that you can live, and it's not the flashy person driving on the freeway in the best car. There's just basic principles about spending less than what you earn, staying out of debt, and saving for the long run. Basic principles. They sound like they're basic principles. Easy to talk about, hard to do. It's like losing weight. Move more and eat less. Easy to talk about, not so easy to do.
Well, especially when you get the Cheetos coming at you. So here we have Wall Street, here we have the Visa and the MasterCard companies, here we have an entire system that is set up to move us into a place of debt. I feel to a degree it's being compounded by this world of social media we're living in, because we're seeing everyone else's photoshopped life and we're wondering, well, geez, I should have a better car, I should have a bigger TV, I should have that clothing. And we're not looking at what am I doing to secure not only the purchase of that item, but my financial survival and sovereignty, so that when I get into my later years, I'm not, relying on the state.
For most of us, our parents or grandparents didn't have access to the free credit society like we do now. In fact, I still remember as a youth, I wanted a drum set, and they didn't have credit cards. My parents told me, you go out and mow lawns. You want to save up for that. And then I put it on layaway. And after spending $10 a month on layaway for 2 years, I decided I didn't want that drum set. So that delayed gratification was pretty good. They charged me a fee, and I got most of my money back. But you're right. We are just inundated in this society, this consumer-oriented society, to think that we can spend more than what we earn, and then that gets us in the debt trouble, and then we end up in financial stress, and we don't know how to get out of it.
So what is one thing that people can do if they're feeling financial stress right now to begin to move themselves out of it? What do you counsel people that walk into your office and say, I am just kind of drowning in this, I don't know where to start?
I don't get any brownie points or bonuses from Dave Ramsey's organization, and I'm sure there might be some programs out there besides his, but I've just found if you Google Financial Peace University, and you could purchase it online, they have sites all over the United States. It's 9 simple lessons. In fact, I just helped a pastor at a local church complete those 9 lessons at her church in Santa Maria, California. And I just found that there's nothing better that I've seen that you could do on your own. You can go through that program. You will learn the basic principles of money management that are not taught anywhere. And it's a very nominal fee, and I think it'll change your life. I know that it transformed my relationship with my wife and my relationship with money. And I just encourage everybody to do that.
That was Financial Peace University?
Financial Peace University.
Amazing. All right. So, folks, if you are feeling a little bit of tension and stress around that, please go have a look at that website. Also, stay tuned here with Trent, because, Trent, you have been in the field of financial services, financial advisory for over 30 years.
Yes, if I had, after my first 5 years of having our accounting practice up in the Central Coast near Santa Barbara, I had clients complain to me about stockbrokers. And they just felt that the stockbrokers wanted the big client, 100,000 or more. They just wouldn't talk to them. And so they were looking for ways to plan for their future. And I loved my finance classes at college. By the way, I'm a local Cal Poly Pomona grad. Woohoo, go Broncos. Anyways, I wanted to make sure that I was able to offer my clients the wisdom of what modern portfolio theory and modern economic science had to say about investing. It doesn't have to be a transactional event. Too many times we think of investing as that transaction we do on E-Trade or Schwab Trade or some website, Wealthfront maybe. It doesn't have to, nothing negative about those things, but what the problem is, unless you get some coaching in this area, you're taught that it's a transaction. You don't learn that it's a transformational process. You need to learn about investing. It's not something you're going to learn on television, I tell you that.
Well, and you touched on something a little bit earlier, which is our society, again, doesn't really teach this. We don't go through high school with financial management. You even go into universities, and yes, you get a degree, but you're not really taught any of this. And so for the average person out there, we then wonder why they're struggling, it's just crazy.
You're right. I remember an interview that our co-advisor, Matson Money, Mark Matson, was on it with Neil Cavuto. And Mark was trying to say these principles. He was telling Neil, I said, look, Neil, it's not rocket science. You just need to diversify globally and rebalance your portfolio back to your risk tolerance when it gets out of balance. And Neil said, "Shh, don't tell everybody that. I make a living out of stress and selling my pillows, basically." So,
Wow. Well,
nothing against My Pillows. I love My Pillows, but My Pillows advertises on all the media channels because they know that people are stressed out, and if they can sell their My Pillows, they're going to give you some peace of mind, at least at night.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, how many of you have woken up in the middle of the night, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 3 a.m., stressed out about money? In your opinion, because I'm always curious with the gender realities, are men more risk tolerant or are women?
You know, I just listened to the book version of Sharon Lecter's book. She remade Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, and she said that the surveys show women tend to be better savers and better understanding of these economic principles, but yet they're more fearful than men. Men tend to be more risky. I think that's the hunter-killer task nature of men. They tend to be more risky and take the risk with the money. Women have more fear around money, and in fact, this very interesting statistic she said that more than 50% of women fear they're going to become a bag lady. And what's real interesting about that statistic is that more than 27% of women that make more than $200,000 a year are fearful that they're going to become the bag lady. Now, where's that coming from? Where's that fear coming from?
Sharon Lecter redid a version of Think and Grow Rich called Think and Grow Rich for Women, which
Yes.
is what you're referencing. And I had the opportunity to visit with Sharon last month in Phoenix. And we talked a little bit about this as well. And I think a lot of it comes back to the days of the cave woman, where by nature women are gatherers, right? The men were the hunters, so they had a higher risk tolerance. The women were the nurturers, and they had to make sure that the tribe was able to sustain and keep that food, those provisions, those resources in place in the event that the food was either delayed in coming back or that it didn't come back at all. So I think a little bit of that, when you said that women are better at maybe saving money and being less tolerant to risking it, probably comes back down to the days of the caveman and the cavewoman, and that's just still ingrained in our DNA.
You know, we're in our nature as human beings, we're basically social animals. And not only back in the caveman days, and we could fast forward to the Industrial Revolution as we became specialists in things. You know, humans have flourished, and the world economic system flourishes because we are specialists now. And in our specialty, we create blind spots. You know, we think we're going to be we're going to be a good doctor, we're going to be a good nurse, we're going to be a good bus driver, we're going to be a good mom, we're going to be a good dad, and then we think we're going to be a good investor, then we think we're going to be good at this and good at that. We're not good at everything. And what I found is that I need coaching around investing, and I go, Christy and I, my daughter, and we'll talk about Christy in a few minutes here, but my daughter and I get quarterly coaching from our upline coaches in our investment advisory practice at Matson Money. But we also coach. We host events for our clients. We want our clients to be educated. We want our clients to get that peace of mind around investing and what that world is really like, not what you're learning on television. You just don't get taught that on television.
Well, and what I love is you referenced Christy. You and Christy are sort of a father-daughter business. She joined you. You have a few different kids. How many kids do you have?
So Barbara and I have been married 43 years this year.
Wow.
4 kids, 8 grandchildren, and number 9 is on the way. We're praying that Sarah has a healthy Luke. She already knows we're going to have Luke.
Oh, that's excellent.
And to go along with her 15-month-old Joshua.
Oh, wow, that'll be fun. Two
yes,
little boys
so
running around.
Christy is the one daughter that came into the business with me. And I've just been blessed by her and her husband Bobby to work with me in Benedetti Financial as we help people get true purpose around their money, as we help people to rediscover their American dream. We want people to flourish, and we want people to get that natural instincts of what their purpose is around money, so that they can have some peace about it and be the best that they can be.
Well, and you know, the thing at the end of the day is we wake up in the morning, and it's something that I've observed. There is a frequency around money, and then there is a frequency around wealth. And everyone wakes up with a frequency of money. I've got to get up, I've got to pay my bills, I have to go to the office, I have to come back. But the frequency of wealth is so much more encompassing. Yes, there's the money element, but there's also that sense of abundance, that sense of safety, that sense of creativity and imagination. And what I love about what Benedetti Financial does, is you invite people into that world. How can you be abundant? And how can finance and your financial portfolio support your abundance versus just what is the interest rate return on your investment a year from now?
Yeah, when we have our educational events, we're asking people at the end of the event 20 questions. And what I found out is that asking the right questions are the most important thing you can do. We get taught in society and the media in general to ask, what stock should I buy next? When should I get in or out of the market? I mean, those are just all the wrong questions. In our 20 questions, one of those questions revolves around abundance. And are people ready to shift their mindset from a mindset of scarcity, which I believe that stock picking mentality is a mindset of scarcity, into a mindset of long-term wealth, and how does money really work? And the questions that we ask, I remember my grandfather, God bless him, he decided to get from Italy after World War I because he didn't want to serve in the Italian army in World War II. He saw the problems on the wall. So he asked the question, not what cushy job can I get, like, maintaining the general's car like he did in World War I. He asked, how can I get my family to America? So he sends my grandmother right down here to LA. He met his younger brother here in Santa Monica. And most of my family became longshoremen, God bless the longshoremen, down here at the docks in Long Beach and in Los Angeles. And I still have his hook, by the way, when he used to grab the nets. Back when we used to have nets coming off those ships. And my grandfather, he asked the right question. And so we like to ask the right questions too. What are the signs you're speculating and gambling with your money? Are you stock picking? Are you market timing? Or are you following the advice of somebody that's advising one of those two things? And I've got news for you. You may think that you could predict the future and pick stocks, but there's no scientific evidence that that's actually going to occur. All the evidence shows that diversifying globally, rebalancing your portfolio back to your risk tolerance is the way you're going to build your wealth and manage that wealth in the long run.
Now, is it true that the younger you are, the higher percentage of investments you can put into higher risk assets or derivatives or whatever it is that you decide you want to put your money into? And then as you age, you should be pulling that back into something that's a little bit more stable?
Well, at Matson Money, with advisors like Christy and I and Bobby, we're managing approximately close to $9 billion with 40,000 investors around the United States. And statistically, the younger investors are in the higher risk tolerance, more stock. Risk is basically a function of the more stocks or equities I have, the more volatile it is. Volatility is just another word for risk. I've had clients, however, that have looked at risk. It depends on your other sources of income. So if you have a pension plan you can count on, or rental property, other sources of income, if you can see your budget, maybe you're out of debt at a certain age. So risk is really a function of an individual analysis. But as a general rule, the younger you are, the more volatile the portfolio is, but not always. It's really, everybody's in an individual function. That's part of what Christy and I do in our coaching, is help you determine that risk tolerance, help you determine what might be best for your portfolio needs.
And what I love is one of the ways you do that is by offering a financial MRI. I thought that was brilliant when I heard it. So you literally will sit down with somebody and deep dive into the brains, the guts of their financial portfolio, and really offer your wisdom and your expertise on whether or not that is going to serve their longer term goals.
Well, we borrow that medical term because it really is true. I mean, what does an MRI do? An MRI is much more in depth than an X-ray. Much more, an MRI nowadays almost as a 3D look, and that's what we like to do with your investments. We actually, in our MRI, compare your portfolio to different portfolios that are strategically diversified using modern portfolio theory, and we look at different risk tolerances. We help you determine, do you know how investments really work? Do you know where returns come from? Do you know where the highest year and the best year in your portfolio in the last 40 years? Do you know the worst 5 years, the best 5 years? Can you sleep at night if you have the worst year? 2008, were you able to handle a 50% drop in your portfolio? Did that ruin your portfolio? Are you afraid to ever get back in the stock market? So these are the type of questions we can look at with an in-depth look at using that MRI as an analysis of what you're in currently.
Well, it's interesting that you referenced 2008, because for those of us that went through 2008 that had any sort of an asset base, it literally was wiped out in about 6 to 8 weeks. Within 6 to 8 weeks of the September crash happening, my equities, my stocks, took a 60% hit. My real estate values a year later took a 40% hit. I started looking around going, oh my goodness, the wealth that I thought I had accumulated was just wiped right out. And so I feel something that you said a little bit earlier in the program is you have to look at what is your unique situation, what are some of your other income-making opportunities. And one of the things we're hearing a lot of in the entrepreneurial world right now is this idea of really setting up and creating multiple streams of income.
Yes, I found when I do retirement planning for people that three-legged stool, if you can have 3 different sources of income, I've just noticed this over the last nearly 40 years of doing financial advice, is that if you have 3 sources of income on that 3-legged stool, it's not going to tip over so easy. And if you remove one of those legs from the 3-legged stool, it's likely to fall over. In fact, it will fall over unless you're the perfect balancer. And then you're teeter-tottering on that risk again and getting all stressed out about it. So if you have a source of income, most people in the United States will have Social Security. That's one source of income. If you're fortunate enough, like my son who has a government job, he's an engineer, graduate of Cal Poly, the other Cal Poly, and he's fortunate as a city engineer to have that CalPERS source of income. I serve on a government pension plan in Santa Barbara. Those employees belong to SB CSRS. Down here in LA County, you've got LaSera. So that's a great source of income, the second source of income. But most people will want to save, either that's IRA or Roth IRA or some form of a 403B, or if you're a teacher or in a hospital situation, nonprofit, or some form of a 401k if you have a job where it allows you to defer that income. So there's a lot of ways you can create that 3 sources of income to give you that financial stability when you retire.
You also talked about passive income coming from real estate holdings. What about the intelligence around putting together a college fund for a child? You just mentioned you have grandkids. Have you advised your children to put college funds in place for their kids?
Well, it's interesting. I'll come back to now my Dave Ramsey education. Dave Ramsey teaches in those 9 lessons on financial peace 7 baby steps. And by the way, Katerina and I, we were talking about earlier, Mel Robbins, if you haven't heard of Mel Robbins, she'll give you a 31-day online education on how to wrap yourself around success in your life and the fears and how to overcome them. And we just completed that program, both of us did. And in that program, we learned that you overcome fears and you get successful not by a lofty goal. It really is overcome. Courage is overcome not by eliminating fear, by taking action steps. Get some knowledge and take some action steps. And so this is what I think is so brilliant around these baby steps. And after you get out of debt, spend less than what you earn, get out of debt, save up a little bit of emergency fund, then you get to baby step 4, 5, and 6. And you have to make a decision there. Pay off the home early, baby step 6, save for your kids or grandkids' education, baby step 5, or baby step 4, start deferring up to 15% of your income. And I have clients come in my office frequently, including my grandchildren, who I like to get that birthday money and that Christmas money, start saving away for the education. Education, doesn't have to be expensive. It can be. My daughter Christy lives in Nashville, and go Vanderbilt. The Vanderbilt men right downtown Nashville just won the NCAA baseball championship. But they also have the University of Tennessee there. And statistics show it's not necessarily the private institution that gives you a better education or more money. There's always the exception. I had a cousin that graduated from Yale, and she's now retired here in Southern California. She did a great job in her private education. But as a general rule, you can save up money for your college education. We've got a great community college system in most states that we live in. And then you get off to that 4-year college and get into your specialty. And that's where you're going to create that success in what you're good at. Get at what you're good at, create that long-term success, and get some coaching. Get some coaching around that blind spot of saving for your long-term wealth and the way modern portfolio theory really looks at investing.
Well, and I love that you talk about that, because Napoleon Hill, going back to him for a moment, talks about one of the 13 goals and really keys to success is retaining and creating and developing specialized knowledge. And a neurosurgeon is going to get paid better than a general practitioner simply because he has that specialized knowledge. But what I want to touch on is what you just talked about, which is the coaching and financial coaching. Most of us, Trent, think of, if I want to lose weight, I'll get a fitness coach. If I want to get media training, I'll go hire a media coach. Most people don't think of hiring a financial coach.
Look, I saw the book on the shelf, Brain Surgeon for Dummies, but I hope that as far as you do is just read it. I remember I had to have a tooth implant, and I never even heard of this before. And the talent and ability of these maxillofacial surgeons and what they do. I mean, can you believe how far dentistry is coming? I mean, you wouldn't want to trade your place in today's world with the King of England 300 years ago. As much wealth as he may have had in most of England, you would not want to trade places. I mean, modern dentistry and the things that we become specialists at make us all flourish as human beings. Get good at something, figure out what your passion is, what makes you feel really good about it. In fact, Napoleon Hill talked about that, is that your passion is not something you may be good at. Your passion is something that you anticipate that excitement before you do it. You love the flow of when you're doing it. And then when you reflect on it, you may have more energy when you did it than when you started it. And I'm going to share a book with you afterwards by Marcus Buckingham. I was fortunate to listen to him on my Dave Ramsey mentoring training. He talks about Lionel Messi. I mean, Lionel Messi is 5 foot barely something, #1 soccer player in the world. And this man can take, he's been statistically modeled 9 out of 10 times he will touch the ball with his left foot. And everybody defending him knows it. They all know it. And you just Google any Lionel Messi goal and you will see magic with the soccer ball. And this man has become an expert at taking that left foot, moving it through all the defenders and scoring a goal. And that's what Marcus Buckingham's finding out in statistical data. We don't want employees that have balance. We don't necessarily want to have total balance in our life. We want to find out what we're good at, what we're passionate about it, and that's how you'll flourish, and that's how you'll get successful in life, is becoming the best media consultant you can be, becoming the best
soccer player
you can be, becoming the best financial coach that you can be. Whatever you're good at, that's what you're going to flourish at. Get some help around us. And I think Napoleon, and Sharon Lecter even mentioned this too, they call them masterminds. Mastermind can be 2 or more people that out of your expertise and my expertise, as we talk about what we're trying to do, in the mastermind, you'll create a third thing that's even better than the 2 of you put together.
Yeah, and I really love that. Actually, to echo what you just said, Gary Vaynerchuk, who is arguably one of the leading social media influencers in the space of entrepreneurship, again, talks about just this. He says, the biggest mistake people are making right now is they're being told, okay, identify what you're good at and then get better at what you're not good at. And he says that the only thing that does is it brings you to mediocre. What you should do is identify what you're good at and then get really darn good at it. And that will allow you to raise above everyone else that's just playing at that mediocre level. The thing is, Trent, that our school system is actually designed to make sure, okay, great, you did well in English, you did well in history, but your math is off. So you better go and get a math tutor so you can bring your math grades up. Instead of saying, you're so excellent at English and history, how can we leverage that for you? What can we do with that? And so I don't have kids, but my observations of the public school system and the private school system is still that we are teaching our children to be average versus being excellent.
We spend more time when your kids bring a report card home with 2 A's, 2 B's, a C, and an F. We'll spend, hey, that was a good A's, but what happened with this F? What about that C and F? We spend more time on that. My son, John, he was the prolific example of that. Barbara and I would go to the teacher conferences, and they say, when John puts his effort at something, he's really good at it. But for some reason, he doesn't have his mind. I think John was just bored in college. I mean, my son, John, got his degree in environmental engineering at Cal Poly. He's thriving in his profession. He's excellent about it. This was the kid that at 2 years old, he wasn't playing with Duplos anymore. He was making things with Legos. I didn't even know where that was coming from. I go, what is he doing with that Lego stuff? And at Halloween, he would make the most amazing costumes, 3D costumes and stuff. And I just knew he had a talent for creating and building things, and it's not always going to fit into the mold of education.
And that was some spatial genius that he had that didn't necessarily equate to writing a good English paper. You know, if you're just tuning in, we are here with Trent Benedetti, founder of Benedetti Financial, and we're talking about the importance of financial education, financial literacy, and really how financial coaching versus simply financial advising is going to be beneficial to your ability to move more gracefully into your later years in a way that you're not waking up at 4 in the morning worrying about how you're going to pay your bills. You talk about something called from transaction to transformation.
Yes.
And I really want to just explore that with you a little bit more. We are told to be transactional, and yet it's a transformation with your money mindset that has to happen first.
Yes, and one example I see, especially now that I'm serving on a retirement board in the public sector, is that if you work 20 or 30 years as a secretary, a nurse, a doctor, a sheriff, a firefighter in any government agency in California, you're not going to wonder where that paycheck's going to come from. But yet somebody's managing the money that your retirement check comes from. And you have peace of mind around the fact that that money is going to be there. Now, I'm sure some people worry about it, but we expect that check to be there. Well, Christy and I in Benedetti Financial, we want you to have that same financial peace around that IRA, that Roth IRA, that 401k that's going to get rolled over into your IRA, that 403b that's going to get rolled over into your IRA. We want you to have that same, or if you're a government employee, federal government employee, that thrift savings plan, you're going to have to roll that over somewhere. And you need some financial peace around that money. And there's a lot of ways that society will teach you that about stress and about losing that money. There's very few outlets, very few people coaching you the right way that money should be managed and the way you should be looking at that. And that's going to take transformation around what you know about money. Transformation begins with knowledge. And I think Think and Grow Rich, that was one of the lessons that you could take away from Napoleon Hill and Sharon Lechter, is that you need to get transformation with knowledge. It begins with knowledge, and then there's going to be a light bulb that's going to go on. Something will click, and you're going to say, aha. It's that aha moment that now you're going to say, now you're going to be the one telling your kids and your grandkids and your friends, this is the way you get your head around money. You got to do it this way, not stock picking, not market timing, not following the track record of somebody doing that. That's Wall Street. We got to bring it back down to Main Street and how life really is.
Well, and what I love is, a lot of people are sitting there at happy hour on a Friday night getting stock tips from their buddy who isn't an expert in any capacity. He just heard a tip from another guy that heard a tip. What I love about what Benedetti Financial does is you offer live seminars where people can come and get some of that education started. So talk to me a little bit about some of your upcoming events.
So I'll be down here. We're booking the location right now in Santa Monica and Culver City. It'll be August 28th and 29th. It's not up yet on the BenedettiFinancial.com website, but Bobby and Chris and I will get it posted there soon. I hope maybe even when I leave today, I'll have the sites all locked in on the contract.
Your dates are secured, August 28th and 29th. We're just finalizing the venue.
And that event is called Mind Over Money. Get that concept, mind over money. What are our fears about money? What are our own instinctual reactions about the market when it goes up and down? What are the things we do right? What are the things we do wrong? We need to wrap our head around what the media does for us, what our instincts, what our fears are, what our emotions do. And Mind Over Money, we're going to explore that. We're going to give you some good meal, and we're going to probably be there about 90 minutes or so, maybe a little less. Get you home. We'll be there, start around 6, get you home around 8:15 or so. But that'll be a Wednesday and Thursday night. Actually, earlier than that, Christy and I will be having an event, one in Santa Maria, California, on August, that'll be July 31st this year, 2019. And then we'll also be in Pismo Beach on August 1st. You want to take a drive up there on Thursday, take a long weekend, enjoy the weekend at Pismo Beach, go up to Pismo, beautiful weather, the sun's out late, beautiful pier, and come up to the Hilton Garden Inn in Pismo Beach, and we'll have an event called the Investor Paradox. You know, what we think we know about how returns are recreated is generally all wrong. The Investor Paradox. It'll be a fun event.
Well, I thank you for that. I thank you for holding these events. I can feel your passion for what you do, your specialized knowledge in the field of financial advisory, and the fact that you have these events that the people can come to. If you are in these areas, I implore you to carve out this 90 minutes, these couple of hours to come and get yourself educated, because Trent, at the end of the day, we don't know what we don't know. So there are things that might be happening for you and your money blueprint. And I want to talk about a money blueprint for just a moment, because T. Harv Eker talks about this as well. You touched on how society can create your mindset around money. A lot of it also goes back to family and what you heard about money growing up. Did you hear that money is the root of all evil? Did you hear that people with money are crooks? What is it in your blueprint that may have been influential, that is driving your subconscious, that is keeping you from attaining the wealth that you want to attain? Let's get to the mindset of the money first, and then, as you said, you can Google all the tactical outlets that you want. That's what the internet's for. But let's get you the coaching you need to make that transformation in your life that is going to allow your transactions to go the direction you want them to go. And that's what these guys do.
Well, that was interesting what you just said, because growing up, there's usually two things they don't talk about around the dinner table: sex and money. And we don't really ever talk about the first one at our events, but we do talk about money. And really, it is a taboo. It is a taboo subject. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was just ingrained that our parents learned from our grandparents that went through the recession in the 1930s.
Don't ever tell anyone how much you're making. Don't ever talk about money. Don't ask for money. Don't. There's so many don'ts around it, as opposed to celebrating it. But I guess that depends on what circles you're running in as well.
And so at Mats and Money, when we have our we take clients to Scottsdale, Arizona for the American Dream Experience, and we actually bring our kids. We have a great youth program, a great teenage program, and if you'd like to be invited with Christy and I to go to Scottsdale for one of our quarterly events over there, you can go to BenedettiFinancial.com, and BENE, D as in David, another E, TTI, BenedettiFinancial.com, and you could leave us a message and say, hey, I'd like to discover that American Dream Experience. It's a 2-day event we do, and it's just an awesome event. We bring 200 investors and advisors from all around the country, fly them into beautiful Scottsdale. It's sunny almost all year round there. And we just have a lot of fun around this concept called the American Dream, where you discover your true purpose for money. You discover what really makes you thrive. And if you have children, we can bring them to that event. I brought my grandchildren to that, what they do there. And it's just a fun day, fun 2 days. And we have some alone time at dinner in some of the beautiful restaurants around Scottsdale. And we do the same thing at Benedetti Financial. We'll be having American Dream events also locally here. If you're in Southern California, we'll have some of that. But investors from all around the United States may not be able to make it to some of our events. Christy will have live events. She's already in Nashville. She's got one coming up soon. Again, BenedettiFinancial.com to check out those events. But if you haven't done that, later in this year, we'll have some online programming. I mentioned the Mel Robbins event that you just did. I think Mel Robbins gave me a great tutor to follow, good coaching that she did, and I'll have some really good educational content for any of our listeners here. Separating myth from truth will be one of those, and I think you'll just love it.
BenedettiFinancial.com. You can go, you can see what it is they're offering, how you can get involved with their team. They have offices up in Santa Barbara and in Nashville, but of course service clients from all over America. I thank you so much for your time to come and share your knowledge and your wisdom with our audience. One parting word for people at home today, Trent, before we leave you to go tackle the rest of your day.
Well, I just think that earlier we touched on it. I started losing weight, and I started getting in better physical shape in my 60s when I hired a coach. Mm-hmm. And my coach, Manny Ramos, I'm going to put a shout out to Manny's Fitness Boot Camp. He's a former Marine drill instructor. And he didn't start off being a fitness coach, but he knew he had an expertise. And people started asking Manny, will you coach me? Will you as my fitness coach? And over the last 6 years, it's just changed my life physically. Well, I've learned the same thing with Mats and Money. I've been an investment advisor for over 30 years, and it wasn't until I began the relationship with Mark Mattson and learned about Eugene Fama and Nobel Prize-winning economic science that I'm not an expert. No matter how many classes I took, no matter how many degrees and licenses I got, I was just another Wall Street bully. And for any of you out there that are watching this, that'd like to get a good takeaway from this, just send me a message at BenedettiFinancial.com and say, Trent, I'd like to get that book, Main Street Money, that you're talking about, when we talk about the Wall Street bullies like you were. Trent, the Wall Street bully that had all the degrees and licenses, but I needed to wrap my head around the fact that Nobel Prize winners are smarter than me. And if I've got a Nobel Prize, great, I could talk about it. But you're not going to go to the LAX here, to the bookstore, and find Eugene Fama's books or Harry Markowitz's books on modern portfolio theory. You're going to find those talked about in Main Street Money. So I'd like to give my guests here that book. That'll be the big takeaway today. Send us a link to, send us your request. Trent, mail me Main Street Money. I want to know what this modern portfolio theory is about. I want to know what speculating and gambling it looks like versus what Main Street Money, being safe with my money. I can't use the word guaranteed, but the way modern economic science really works. And I think you'll be blessed by that book, and then you'll start exploring this stuff more and start getting some of the education that I got 6 years ago when I joined up with Matson Money as our co-advisor.
Fantastic. That's August 28th and 29th. I just want to reiterate your event coming up in the Los Angeles area. 2 evenings you get to choose from. Details on address and venue will be up on the Benedetti Financial website soon. For now, save the dates, August 28th, 29th. The American Dream, what was it?
The American Dream event, Christy
Dream.
and I will take you
that's
to.
in October?
It's going to be in October in Scottsdale. We only have room for a few clients or prospective clients. But if you say, hey, Trent, I want to see what this Matson Money's about. I want to see what you and Christy and Bobby are about. We're all going to be there, and we'll take you there. We'll treat you to a great weekend. You'll probably pay for your flight there, but after that, we got you covered on the event and the meal. So give us a shout out to BenedettiFinancial.com. Learn more about it. If you can't make the October American Dream, we offer those multiple times during the year. We also offer them live in Nashville and in our local market.
Excellent. Well, Trent, I thank you so much for taking the drive down.
Thank you, Katerina.
I appreciated you
Thank
being
you.
here. We appreciate you always being here. Excuse me, as I choke on the way out. Have a wonderful Friday. Today is Thursday. Have a wonderful rest of the day, Trent. You are awesome. I thank you for your wisdom, and we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to LA 40 with Katerina Kozayas, only on LA Talk Radio.